Hello, welcome to Monday Night Paranormal Live. Hi, Paula. Hi, welcome to Monday Night Paranormal Live with myself, Paul and Jenny from Host for Ghosts. I have Angela from South Coast Ghosts, Julia from Paranation Ghost Hunting Events, Abnormal Paranormal, Paula, one of our investigators, and our special guests. And we're very privileged to have Highland Paranormal. We have Leo, Cara, and Lynn. So if you want questions, send your questions in. Apparently, Lynn's really hot on UFOs. So let's have your UFO questions. Obviously, we've invited them on to Monday Night Paranormal Live. I'm sure they've watched 1 or 2 episodes of this and know what they're letting themselves in for. So loads of questions for them. Put them on the spot. Make them work hard tonight. Abnormal Paranormal were out at the weekend in a castle, was it? The castle you're in, boys?
Yeah.
So, hi, Christine. So, right. So obviously you've met the team, which is obviously myself, Angela, Julia, Paranormal. Right. Our question to you is, what's your scariest place that you've been in Scotland? That's my question.
It's normally the people.
Yeah, the living.
The living, yeah. Scariest place.
It's difficult, isn't it?
I actually think the first time I ever went out on an investigation, we went to 2 locations, and the second location was the woods beside the old mental asylum here in Inverness, which has an old pauper's graveyard. So it was for the poor who basically were those who were kind of forgotten about when they died. They were thrown in. Basically, were put in there, and that I was a bit on edge that night, as it was being the first night out. It was misty, it was dark, and yeah, it was a bit freaky. So that's probably actually the only time I would say I've ever probably been scared. Would have been that night. Yeah, I don't know about the other guys.
Clara?
I can't think of anywhere that I would say I've been scared. I'm one for saying fear in the living more than the dead. So, but we did do a location a couple of times. It's an old kirk called Bearavan Kirk, and there's a forest beside it. And both times we've been there, I've had quite sort of unsettling experiences where when we started to find out information, something seemed to not necessarily attach itself to me, but kind of latch on, and I came over funny and nearly passed out both times we were there. And it's the only thing that's ever happened to me. So that makes me a little bit uneasy about the idea of ever going back. But I don't know if I'm scared as such.
Yeah.
So, hi, Graham. So, are you spirit? Can you connect with spirit?
Yes. Yeah.
So you sense spirit around you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes you more vulnerable then, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it makes you more open. They're more likely to come through to you. It kind of increases activity a little bit. So, yes.
Cool. Lynn, how about you?
Yeah, I've got 2. I'm not generally scared of any place, but I've had 2 scares. Maybe 2, 3, 2 being the same ones. One in my own house about 5 years ago, just about coming up to 5 years ago just now. And it's a traditional Scottish cottage. The door's in the middle. There's 2 rooms either side. I was up in one of the bedrooms. I came out and it was 11 o'clock in the morning. And down at the foot of the stairs, there was this classic shadow figure. Head, shoulders, couldn't see the arms, but came straight down. Stock still for 1, 2, 3 seconds, and then it shot off the hall, and I've got a cutout in the stairs, and as it went by the cutout, it was fading as it went. It was so, and they scared of my house. There's things going in the house. It's an old house, but that I was like, oh. Yeah, that kept me up for a wee while to process what had happened. The second one being Barryvan Woods. Before Kyra felt funny and almost collapsed, I was with her that night. Just after lockdown, when we were allowed to go out in groups, where the 3 of us went up to Barryvan. We did the churchyard, and then we went up to the woods. And we were just standing chatting, and all of a sudden I heard roar, roar in that ear. And that's to me, if it sounded like roar, roar, growl, roar, roar. Fortunately, we're taping it, so we played back the audio. And for all intents and purposes, I think it says Rachel.
Oh, wow.
The name, but for me, it would just and you can hear me say on the tape, "What the bloody hell was that?" The other two, we were socially distanced, that was rules. The other were about 6 feet from each other. The other two didn't hear it, but I heard it. But it was picked up on the other person's tape recorder. So,
wow.
And when Kyra collapsed, we just replayed that audio.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, we just replayed it, and she went funny, and we had to rush to grab her because she would have been on the floor in a snotty heap.
Wow.
So there's something going on in Barryvan Churchyard Woods. We don't know. I can't get any research on just the name Rachel. It's just, you're not going to get a single name for the records. So probably may track that one down, but that's the two scares I've hit.
Wow. Anybody got a question for them?
Yeah, this is Poppy the spirit dog.
This is spirit dog. Andrew, you got a question?
If you could investigate any location in the world, where would it be and why?
Mm.
World.
I think I go to Florida fairly often, and I've done some investigations over there, and it's always quite interesting. But I would love to do Holyrood Castle,
Okay.
Edinburgh.
All right.
Mary Queen of Scots, the Lord Darnley thing, yeah, the murder room. I think that would be my choice.
Cool.
Wow.
I think mine would have to be Walton Castle, which again is in Scotland, because I had my first ever paranormal experience there, and it's an incredible location just to visit. So it would be amazing to get in there and investigate it.
Yeah, I've got loads, but actually the one that kind of springs to mind just now is probably I'd love to do the Tower of London. When you think of what's the energies that must be in that building, I think that would be a fascinating one. I think it might be a very busy night, but I would be fascinated to do the Tower of London.
Be interesting, wouldn't it?
For a bit of a walk round, and I believe I caught a ghost. I'll bump it up in the group, but yeah, there was a beefeater there, and he was talking about Lady Jane Grey and how she's like saw her husband, being towed away, and I thought I'd just take a few photos here and there. When I got home, I sort of like blew them up and examined them, and it's what looks like a lady's white head in one of the windows.
Wow!
So that was quite interesting. It's a good place.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Definitely that, or Hampton Court would be the other one. I think I'd like to, because you can imagine what happened there, couldn't you? Graham Bentley's put, have you ever stayed in any haunted? Is it Boys?
Bothies.
All right, is that how you pronounce it? Sorry. Have you stayed in any?
Not yet.
Oh yeah, that sounds ominous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Planned. Have you not told your team?
Yeah, no, we have got one that's, well, you can't actually stay in the Bothy anywhere. We have got one we're talking about doing later in the year. Interestingly enough, probably the most famous haunted Bothy, actually, our one of our other team members, Lindsay, her father was the other gentleman that was in the Bothy that night, that's featured quite heavily on Uncanny recently.
Okay.
But he's never given his side of the story yet. But yeah, so we've heard kind of both sides of the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is that story then?
What is that story? We've been Gemma's put, good evening everyone and welcome to Highland Paranormal. I've never been to Scotland, but I've heard it's a very much haunted, Gemma.
Yeah, there's quite a few ghosts about.
It's got steeped in history though, isn't it? It's got a massive history in Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Do you find that there's a lot of restrictions when you're going to a location? You know, you can't do this, you can't do that, you mustn't do this, you mustn't do that, or are they quite free running with what you do?
They're normally pretty good. I mean, we obviously get permission to go to to a lot of locations that we do. We've got permission. So sometimes it's National Trust of Scotland locations. They can be a bit nervous at times, but most recently when we've been doing locations like we've done Castle Fraser the last 2 years in Aberdeenshire, the staff there have been absolutely brilliant. Now that's a location most haunted have in the past, but and they kind of get it. They kind of know. So some locations, I'm sure you guys are the same. If you go to some of these locations, sometimes the staff are so used to teams coming in, they're really good, and but you go to some other places and they're not so good. But yeah, they're really, really good. But I think we're kind of talking a wee bit just before we came on air, and I think it's safe to say, in it, guys, that the biggest struggle is actually getting locations.
Yeah, it's getting locations at the right money as well, isn't it? That you're not paying extortionate amounts of money, for a location. That's what we find. Some places, like Julie was saying, as soon as they get that, it may be haunted. They tend to ramp their prices up. And to the small teams, I don't know. Do you take guests with you? Do you have a guests events where you take people with you?
Yeah.
And what's the average price of your tickets up there for your average events, sort of thing?
Ours vary depending on location. I mean, the Castle Fraser is a big location. It's, from our point of view, it's not cheap to hire, but we also are very mindful. We like to keep our ticket prices as low as possible. So I think, was it £40 we were charging per person? I think last time out, I think it was for was it might have been even lower. Yeah,
I think.
But, I mean, we're doing another location, Pool House, over in the West Coast, which again's got a fascinating history. It's a former clan Mackenzie hunting lodge. It was the Royal Navy base headquarters for the Arctic Convoy. Winston Churchill stayed there. So when we do that one, we're only charging £15, a head on that one. So we want to make it accessible for people.
Yeah.
We, as we say, we're not an events company. We're just a paranormal group, but we've always got people coming and wanting to come out with us. Nice. So when we can do this, and we can give back then to the locations as well, a bit of money. So we're non-profit, so we don't profit from any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you get. Is there a big interest in Scotland into the paranormal?
Oh yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
And what's your association with TAPS? How did you join them?
We had only been going a couple of years when we were approached by the TAPS representative in the UK to do a case up here because they didn't have a team. Okay. And after that, we were invited to join TAPS, nice. Which was that was quite a privilege for us. I mean, it was a real privilege. I mean, Ghost Hunters was one of the reasons I started doing what I do. So to get that kind of backing was really good, and it gives us the opportunity when we get stuck with something to go to the other groups and say, can we get your advice and your thoughts on this? And obviously, if any cases come in for the north of Scotland through TAPS, the cases come to us.
Oh, nice. So they keep you busy with the income and.
Yeah, well, as I said, we don't charge. That's one of the things about TAPS. TAPS is non-profit. The teams have to be non-profit, and So I'm looking at things logically. So there's certain rules there, but
Sure, of
yeah,
course.
but yeah, it's a good network of people.
Yeah.
Who are always there to help.
I'm part of the Warren Institute, you know, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
So I'm part of one of the investigators for them, for the NESPRA, New England Society of Paranormal Research.
Cool.
So I'm one of their investigators there. Anyway, Christine Wells has put, I've heard that Greyfriars Cemetery in Edinburgh is very haunted. Have you done an investigation there?
We haven't. I think, Kyra, you're the last person that visited there, aren't you?
I am, and there's definitely a lot of energy there. I didn't investigate. I was just there as a tourist, but yes, it is an incredible location. Yeah.
So there's a lot of energy there, is there?
Yes, absolutely. One particular area, the Covenanters, it's fascinating. So Liam's a bit more jammed up on the history of that than me, but it's a fascinating location.
Oh wow. Yeah. Excellent.
Unfortunately, it's another location that you are now not allowed to investigate. So Edinburgh City Council have really come down hard on certain graveyards with regards to doing tours, events. You've got to have a license. I know certain people who've gone in with equipment have been told pack up and leave. So yeah, it's a very busy graveyard. It's constantly got people in it. You know, it's a big tourist attraction. But
have they done that because there's damage getting done to it, or is it just?
I think it's just for the upkeep. It's towards keeping to get money towards the upgrade. But they basically took in for the whole of Edinburgh kind of a license, tour guide license that you have to do even tours.
Right.
In the graveyards, and Greyfriars has got links to Harry Potter as well, so you get Harry Potter tours in there, as well as the more kind of historical and ghostly ones.
Yeah,
but kind of spot on that everybody I've spoken to from Edinburgh tells me the Covenanters is actually the interesting part of the grave, not Greyfriars itself, but Covenanters, which actually is normally under lock and key.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of energy there. A lot of is it uneasy energy, or do you just know there's lots of spirits there?
For me, it's more just intriguing than anything else. You're kind of automatically drawn to that area of the graveyard. That area is actually right at the back in the far left corner. It's tucked out the way. Unless you're being really thorough when you're walking around, you probably wouldn't know it was there. But you are drawn there, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a prison.
Sorry,
Paul. Yeah, it was a prison. That's what it's the Covenanters prison is what it was actually called. And probably hundreds of people perished there. They were basically imprisoned there, but it was wide open to the elements from what I'm aware. So and the gentleman who was actually kind of prosecuting them at the time was the famous Bloody Mackenzie. George Mackenzie which is obviously the famous Mackenzie poltergeist.
Right. Okay. Liam, what sort of paranormal UFO sightings do you get in Scotland then?
Yeah, well, there was probably the UFO thing predates my paranormal experiences. Became more interested. I became interested in that first. So yeah, back in the 90s, there was a UFO magazine, so I would avidly devour that every 2 months, and I'm just genuinely interested in the whole cover up and we are not ready and for disclosure kind of thing. So I'm really following this new. The Congress meetings, the disclosure thing, and with Trump just being inaugurated today, he has said he's going to look into what is going on specifically about the drones that's been on the East Coast of America. And I've just watched Ross Coulthard's New Nation, New Whistleblower. program that's been out the weekend with the egg-shaped UAP. He was a helicopter pilot, and he says he's a helicopter pilot involved in transporting various exotic UAPs, and this one is an egg-shaped one. There's photos. There's a lot of discrediting going on, but there's that bots, is that tactical discredit. So yeah, we live in interesting times in the UAP, and I have seen some back in the early 2000s. We were driving home. I live in the middle of the countryside, and I'm quite high up. We were driving home at tea time. We'd been to the shops. No moon, was dark, midwinter, dark early up here. But about 3:30 in the afternoon gets dark. And my husband, he was a serving police officer at the time. He's retired now. And he was driving, and we were just to come onto the head of the hill. Well, it's a plateau. You get up the hill, drive along the plateau. And there was just this green burst of light. You see a rocket go up, the engines ignite, and the flames come out. But it was green, luminescent green. And then all of a sudden, there was a straight peak pulled up from this burst. And it was burst, peak, and it was there for about a second, and it instantaneously disappeared all at the same time. So we didn't see a craft, but there's nothing that's got luminous green engine rocket fuel to this day. So yeah, something took off. We saw the exhaust of that, and he was driving, and we just turned to each other and went, "What the bloody hell was that?" It's like, oh yeah. So we still can't explain that today.
Bar, have you had any experiences with UFOs? Have you seen?
Not really. I had one last year, which I've sort of told Lynn about and can't explain it. Came out of my house at stupid o'clock in the morning to go to work, and there was a very bright light in the sky moving fast. Initially thought, oh, I've seen this shooting star for the first time. The sky was totally clear. It flashed bright red and then vanished into thin air. And I walked all the way to my work backwards, looking up at the sky, waiting to see if it was going to reappear. And somebody who lived at the opposite end of my village came to work and told me the exact same story that they had just seen as well. So I have no idea what that was. Can't explain it. It didn't go behind a cloud. It just vanished.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what time in the morning was that? Was it early hours, you were saying?
Yeah, it was probably about 5:30 in the morning.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Liam? Have you had any contact with the other side?
A long time ago. Yeah, I saw the more traditional kind of, but it was like flame orange saucer, and my brother saw it as well. So it wasn't just me. It was at 7 o'clock in the morning. We just got up, opened the bedroom curtains, looking out the bedroom, and it actually looked like it was hovering a couple of streets away. It didn't even look that far away, and then it just went. You know, that's my kind of only real experience. You know.
And what's your take on these orbs that seem to be more and more lately? Do you think it's leading up to something, or is it just we're more aware now than we've ever been? What's your take on these orbs appearing?
With social media, the spread of in TikTok, I don't do TikTok, but the TikTok, it just spreads all around the world now. But yeah, I think there's some maybe just normal things. Some of the videos I've seen on the East Coast of America, it's definitely planes. The mayor went out visiting people in one of the towns that were reporting the things, and he says, "That's a planet, it's Jupiter." Yeah, so there's misidentification for a lot of things, but there is a handful of videos that you could not say what that is. If it's a drone, it's a blinking big drone. They're I wouldn't classify them as UAPs because they're not doing the 5 observables, the classic darting off and high speed and transmedium and things like that. But they are unexplained. To me, the government isn't producing an explanation, so that lends me to think they know what it is. They kept coming and say it's not a worry, a concern to us, but they're flying over sensitive places. But the government's saying it's not a concern, it's not national security. Well, they can only say that if they know what it is. But why are they not telling us?
Very true.
Trump has said that he's going to tell us about them. There was once drones reported around about 3 RAF bases in England. I have talked to somebody that's retired. I'll not say the service, but they have assured me that that's ours. But we'll see. We'll see.
So we have a question from Gemma. Yeah, we have a question from Gemma. Question to Highland Paranormal. What made each of you start doing the paranormal?
Who's going first?
Liam, you start. Liam, start.
Tough question.
I started watching Most Haunted. Don't judge me. No, I grew up. I mean, we touched on it already. I think growing up in Scotland, and especially in the Highlands, I grew up with a lot of ghost stories, folklore, the history. So I've always had a fascination into that kind of thing. So it kind of was. It was the next step. Most Haunted came along, and then, as I said, Ghost Hunters came along. When Ghost Hunters came along, all the gadgets. I work in IT. It was like, yeah, this is for me. I like this approach. They're trying to debunk, and they're not saying everything's a ghost. And I love that approach. So that's kind of how I got into it. Basically, there was a group trying to set up a group up here. That didn't happen. So a few of us who'd met up just started our own group, and that's how it started for me.
Laura?
Well, for me, it's a mixture of personal experiences, growing up sensitive, but taking quite a long time to realise that that's what it was, and that what I could see and feel, not everybody could. And then I was gifted tickets to a Highland Paranormal event and went along to it and caught the bug for investigating, got to know people who were like-minded and that I didn't sound crazy to, and ended up joining the team.
That's the thing, isn't it? Meeting like-minded people.
Yeah, 100%. Nice when people understand where you're coming from and don't just look at you and sort of think,
What?
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? But
yeah. And yourself, Lynn?
Yeah, I've always been a Trekkie, so that fueled my interest in UFOs. And like I said, Scotland is steeped in stories of kelpies and fairies and elves and things. Even the brownies I was in, the groups where the sets were in, I was in the kelpies. So yeah, it's kind of, you grow up with that. And then when the explosion happened with the TV, with the Most Haunted and the Ghost Hunters, it was like, ooh, that's quite interesting. And so Liam started up his group, but after about a year, he needed somebody to do the history research, because that's
right.
Doing that. So I came on board doing that, because I live about 2 hours away from Inverness in the Aberdeenshire. So yeah, my job at that time involved shift work, so I couldn't get out on as many investigations as I wanted to. Now do 9 to 5. It's more. It's easier to fit around than that. So yeah, I started doing the history research and then started going on the investigations when I could, and then now can go on a bit more. So yeah, I'm probably the second oldest team member.
Yeah, you are.
You're never too old. That's what I say. You're never
The
too old.
oldest, the longest in the team.
And Gemma's put on there also the same question to Abnormal Paranormal. So what got you into the paranormal, boys?
Just always had a passion since I was quite young. Yeah. You know, I grew up just loving horror films, basically, and I think just got into the paranormal. I just always had a fascination for it. It's just a passion, isn't it? I think we all share. It's a passion, isn't it? Of finding out what is actually out there. You know.
Yeah.
It's like
experiences.
Sorry, Ben.
Sorry, I've had my personal experience as well, like when I was younger, and so I've always been open-minded and wanted to investigate more.
How about yourself, Paula? What brought you into the paranormal world?
Me.
Me.
Oh, me. No, Darren did actually.
All right.
Brought me into it basically because I was the one that, well, it was actually Justin and William wanted to go basically into that Sampshaw school, hall, wasn't it basically? So I was a bit more squeamish, going, I don't want to see any ghosts, I don't want them following me. I was a bit like that. I don't want them coming home with me. So I was a bit more like that. I don't want nothing following me. I think that's what it was. And I ended up going, they said, come on, please go, please go. Dan was a bit more like, come on, you've got to come as well, come on. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's how I got the bug, really, because then I did that. And it's like, find out the history of the people. I think sometimes you feel a bit sad. I think that's the thing. Worst thing is that you get to know these people on the board, and you find their story, and you get to and you tell their story. I suppose sometimes when you done the, I don't know if you for free done the human pendulum. That's what you do. Basically, I don't know, but if when I've done that a few times, everything else, you get them feelings of the person connecting with you, and everything else. And afterwards, you get all that, your body's into shock, really, in some words, because you get all the tingling sensation of it else. And sometimes you feel that person afterwards. Even Justin's been in that, done the human pain with my husband, and if that's done it, he got all the emotions from it when he did that Stampshaw school with Darren. So, but yeah, my question to you three then basically is actually, have you done the human pain? Is that what you do, or what do you do gadget-wise?
We haven't done a human pendulum. I've wanted to do it. It's one that's kind of interested me, but we've never. I don't know if Kyra or Lynn have ever done it at other events they've been at or anything. But it does fascinate me. I mean, we use a mix. I saw a question around events and what we use at events. So dowsing rods is something that we use quite a lot, especially at events. They're very popular. People love to get the hold of the dowsing rods, so we use them, and we've had some brilliant interaction on dowsing rods over the years. I know that the kind of community is a bit mixed on, whether or not they are doing what, are we really communicating with the other side, or is it us subconsciously that's moving the rods? But I've done a few experiments, and I've been really surprised at the results I've got when we've used rods. So yeah, we use.
They don't. Sorry to interrupt. They don't work for everybody, because people say, I've been dowsing for about 20 years, and people say, let me have a go. Let me have a go. And some people, as soon as they pick them up, they're swaying all over the place with the energy, and then other people pick them up and they're just like, I use the solid metal ones. Some people just pick them up and they don't do anything. They don't move for them or anything. So I don't know if you found that as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And there's no mix in it. But you can, somebody who's desperate for them to move, they don't move.
Yeah.
And then I've seen complete skeptics pick them up and they move. So yeah, I'm with you. I think there is definitely something with the rods that works. I always say it's energy based, but I think it is energy based. But I've done one where we had 3 individuals in a room all holding rods, and I basically pointed at one at a time and asked them to move the rods, and one by one the rods moved, and I was like, well, or I'll ask a question or a series of questions to a complete strangers on the rods and get the correct answers coming back.
Do you ever just think of the question because I've also found that if you just think of a question, like I've got a personal set and I've got like the working set, but my personal set at home, when I use those, I can just think of a question and they will move. And also when we do the human pendulum, it's quite a similar concept where a person will stand in the middle, they're the dowsing rods or the pendulum, and somebody will sort of like be in front of them to sort of, or at the side of them to make sure they don't fall over when they go forwards or backwards. And we ask questions out like, you know, did you used to work here? Can you move this person forward for yes or backwards for no, or show us the yes, show us the no. But sometimes we're just sort of like standing there thinking, oh, what do we ask? Because your mind just goes blank. What do you ask? What do you ask? And then someone in the circle will say a question. Well, they will think it, and the pendulum, that person in the middle, will just move. And you're like, well, come on. If you've got a question, just say it. Just say it out loud, because someone's asking something and they're moving. So we found that, especially, you know, Paul's had that as well, haven't we? So
yeah. I mean, you know someone that around the circle is what it's, you know, generally the newcomers, isn't it? They don't want to say anything. You know, you're really trying to pull them into the group, aren't you? Get them to interact with you, and because you want them to have a good time and feel what you feel and feel the passion for what we do. And you know, sometimes in the human pendulum, you know, someone in their head is asking a question because you can see it answering yes or no. So you're sort of saying, someone here in the circle has got a question. Please say your question, because spirit are answering your question. And it, you know, when we sort of had the bit where, you know, spirit must know what you're thinking before you want to say it. They're already answering what you were going to say. You think, oh, well, I was going to ask that question, but you know, it just sort of makes you aware how clever spirit is, doesn't it? But you should try the human pendulum next time. I think you'll be quite astounded the result. It's quite, and if people see it visually, you know, and then obviously once you've done it, you take that person out, and lots of people go to that person and say, "What was it like?" They say, "Well, I don't actually know what it was like because I don't remember any of it," and they don't actually remember swaying backwards and forwards. So I'm not sure, but we've had some real quite good results with the human pendulum. You know,
especially if you like the dowsing rods, it might be a nice experiment to try.
Yeah. We'll try it and let you know.
Yeah, please do let us know. Yeah. You don't need a massive group either. You just need enough group to build an energy, and you know, and then like Cara, if you're sensitive, you'll know spirit will coming in. If you ask them to go round that circle, and can you choose one person around the circle you wish to communicate with? And we try and ask for the spirits of the building rather than mum, dad, granddad, you know, auntie, uncle. You know, you start getting the family relatives coming in. That's not what the investigation is about. It's about the history, the location, and the spirits within that building. It's what you want to communicate with, you know, and you ask them to go around the circle and choose someone from that circle to indicate who you would want to communicate through. So that must, the person they choose, I think that the spirit must feel easy with, or think, well, I can communicate well through this person because they're very open to this. You know, you could get some people, they're very much skeptics, aren't they? You know, and they're what we call blockers. And it can be sometimes be very difficult to get the energy to rise when you've got a few people that are blockers. I've only come to keep my girlfriend company. You know, I really don't believe in that sort of stuff that you run in. I don't know if you run into that sort of
Oh yes.
Them sort of people. But it makes it very, very difficult, isn't it, when you got that persons, you know. But in the human pendulum, if you've got someone that's a bit of a skeptic, but it still seems to work because they choose a person. It's not you that's choosing it; it's the spirit that's choosing that person around that circle. You know, can you pull her? Can you touch her? Whisper in their ear, move the hair, and you see somebody sort of stagger forward. So you know, then you say, "Would you like to come in the middle?" Look, 9 times out of 10, they do. A few say, "Oh no, I'm all right. I'm all right where I am." And then you've got to invite spirit to then, you know, communicate again, show us who you'd wish to communicate through. But we've had some real good contact, some very strong contact through it, and some good answers.
Yeah, we find with the rods, don't we? Sorry, I was just going to say, Kyra and Lynn, that sometimes, especially male and female spirits, they actually will only communicate with certain team members.
Yeah.
Which we always find fascinating. And we had a really interesting one with one of the other guys, Barry. So we were at Ruthven Barracks, which is an old British military outpost, and one of the ladies in the team had been trying to communicate in rods. She's very good in the rods, but she was getting nothing. And so we found out if it's a soldier from, the 1700s, maybe they don't want to speak to a woman. So Barry took the rods, and Barry spoke to the soldier as if he was an officer.
Right.
And the rods then started communicating, which was absolutely fascinating.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we did have events possibly twice a year at a private country hotel, and there's a spirit we thought was called Bart. He was in Culloden, and he was very much attracted to the younger girls, especially with the blonde or ginger hair. He would interact with the rods really well with him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think when you're communicating with spirit, how much the Scottish dialect has changed from, if you're speaking to a spirit that's a 200 or 300 year old house? We have found this before, in modern day English, the dialect's changed, isn't it, over that many years? Do you find that in Scotland that you tend to change your dialect a little bit, so if you can get them, because they don't understand what you're saying now?
Yeah, well, we have one. Sorry, Lennon, you go.
Okay. I was just going to say we've recently taken on somebody that speaks Gaelic, and I speak Doric, that's in the northeast. So we're kind of covered now.
Yeah, we've had occasions in the past. We did Inverary Jail, where I think Kyra, you were with. It was the group we had, and there was a lady who was sensitive, and she could speak Gaelic. And she says, "I've got a woman here. She can speak English, but she doesn't want to."
Yeah.
And if from a certain time period, the Highlanders were very, very suspicious of English-speaking people. So you can totally understand that. And we've had at other locations as well, where we've had guests who can speak Gaelic, and one day we were just getting gibberish on the rods, nothing sensible at all. There was energies there, but we weren't getting anything at all. And there was I think he was only about 12, young boy, and he 13 or something, and he could speak Gaelic. And as soon as he started asking questions in Gaelic, the rods started giving us yes and no answers, which was fascinating.
So it just shows you how much the dialect's changed over from that to now. We're so busy saying, "Can you not once for yes, twice for no?" We're so into the moment. We've got to sort of remember where you are and what period you may be contacting, haven't you? So you sort of got to slow down a little bit and put it in very basic terms, like Old English, like you're saying, for us up in Scotland. We have a question here. Graham Bentley's put, "What's your favourite pieces of equipment?"
Dora's put a similar question as well.
All right, and Dora's put question to Highland Paranormal: "What's your favourite equipment you like to use on the events? Are you more into the old ways of communicating or more modern?"
I think we do a bit of both. Kind of do a good mix of both. My personal favorite bit of equipment, it's a new one for me. It's a Zoom recorder, like they use on ghost hunters. So it's a handheld, basically studio recorder. And when you're investigating with it, you wear headphones with it so you can hear it in real time. You can still hear everything going on around you, but it amplifies everything so much that you pick up the slightest noises that maybe a normal EVP recorder wouldn't pick up. And I've actually just been through some audio evidence that we had from a private case last year, and it's unbelievably clear the things that's picked up on it. So that's my favourite piece of equipment at the moment, anyway.
Liam, what would be your favourite piece?
I always say the audio recorder. I've got a very old audio recorder because that's probably the one piece of kit where I've gathered the most evidence over the years from. I do like my EMF meters. just simply from the fact that I use them a lot to debunk. So we've done a lot of cases where we've actually found high electrical fields in a building and whatnot, and been able to, even coming in with a sensitive said, I'm not picking up anything in here. So yeah, I'm quite keen on them as well.
How about yourself, Lynn?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've had an SLS camera for about a year. Usually I give it my husband to use if he's in an investigation as well, because it's very heavy. You get really tired arms. And it was just another piece of equipment I bought for events, because sometimes you go through things and you're kind of stuck. So it was just something to show people, but it's proved really interesting. I'm more a scientific person. So yeah, it's proved really, it picked up some interesting things. And the cheaper end cat balls are just fantastic. They're
brilliant.
And in your dark room, you can see them going off. And really a good one in Castle Fraser, not last year, the year before, the first time we did it. Mr. Colonel Smiley and Mrs. Smiley were the last people to live and own Castle Fraser before it went to the NTS in about the 1920s. And we were in Mrs. Smiley's sitting room, and the cat balls had been going off different places. And I got video that just switched off at our bureau. And I asked, is this Mrs. Smiley we are speaking to? And it just went off again. And they're just so simple. They've just got batteries and a motion sensor and lights. You can see in them. There's no timing device that they're set to go off. And then they can go off, and then they stop going off, and it's just like you just don't know why that's happening, because there's no one touching them. What's the other thing I'd like? There's three things, but yeah, I'm more of
good question.
But I can't explain rods for the life of me.
No.
I've tried that, and I use the word freaky. It's just I can stand stock still, and the move, and you ask a question, and it's just. I recently did a stone circle. We've got a lot of stone circles in Aberdeenshire, so it was a really sunny day in September, and I grabbed my daughter and said, "We'll go filming," and we were doing a stone circle, and every time they were pointed to one direction. It was not to a stone. It was this particular stone as I see them today. But I later find out that the stones had been placed back in probably not their original setting. So that might, wherever I stood in that circle, they were pointing to one place. So that was really interesting. My husband likes the rods, but I give him the SLS because it's just too heavy for me. He does like a good road session, but they're freaky. I just can't explain them.
Graham's put, if you get a voice respond on the voice recorder, does it speak with a Scottish accent?
Email them.
Sometimes. It's a bit mixed. I mean, we've had Gaelic, we've had French. We've had one of the most interesting ones is we had a very educated English accent going, "Hello there," basically. Obi-Wan Kenobi. But what's really interesting is that the house it was in, the person who was there immediately said, "That's Neil." She knew who it was. Wow. And we picked him up on 2 different occasions. And then on another night, a couple of guys were there late. They were doing an investigation, just unplanned investigation with the owner, and they actually heard his voice.
Oh, wow.
With their own ears as well. So that's probably, but I'm trying to think with regards to voices, have we got anything that's kind of at least stunningly Scottish? But I don't think. I mean, the thing with the Scottish accent up here as well is it's not as in your face as, say, the Glaswegian accent. So it's not quite as it's a little more subtle, shall we say, up here.
Right.
But yeah, definitely had a few good ones over the years.
Have you ever used a writing planchette? Have you had any response from a writing planchette? Have you used any of that equipment?
I think we tried it once and got nowhere with it years ago. It's another one that we probably need to go back and revisit again.
We tend to get children come through on the ones we do.
Right.
You know, and Julia will tell you, like, we draw a picture and say, can you copy the picture? And, you know, a lot of the times it is a very similar picture, isn't it, Julia?
Yeah, it's interesting. But then you sort of think, oh, is it sort of like suggestive thinking and, you know, unconsciousness sort of like doing it? But we've got some really good results from that. So yeah, we quite like to use that now and then.
Yeah, I think my go-to equipment really is my EVP recorder. I have a Philips voice tracer, which it's been picked up some amazing sounds from that for voices, and I tend to have an infrared camera put on a tripod, and I just leave it, fire it up, just leave it, and just not go near it. And I've picked up some because you could be at the other end of the building, can't you? If something happens down the other end, sometimes you can hear it, sometimes you miss it. So we tend to put a camera in a room somewhere out where obviously no guests go and bump into it, knock it, or, you know, it bounces up and down as people walk past, because obviously that just debunks everything you do. But we tend to pick up a lot of shadow figures with it. We've seen a lot of shadow figures. We do an abbey near us called Waverley Abbey. It's a 14th century abbey, and it was used during the First World War for nursing and all of that type of stuff. And we picked up a soldier's shadow figure walking across the fireplace one night, where we just left it. We just left it in there for a couple of hours, let it run with the battery backup. And it wasn't until I went back over it that you saw it. You saw what looked like a soldier walking across the fireplace, like a shadow of it. So, you know, they're probably my go-to. What about you boys? What's your go-to piece of equipment?
We tend to use various stuff.
Yeah.
We kind of just experiment, but
I quite like the EMF because, like, you can debunk stuff, but when you can also pick up stuff that you can't explain. So,
but we use a lot of it. It's just using yourself, your senses.
Yeah,
you know, but we had an incredible thing happen last night in the castle we were in. It was just
right.
Yeah.
Well, then tell us. We like that. We like a bit creepy.
So we went to Walton Castle last night, which is down in the southwest of England, and basically we walked into this room, one of the turrets, so one of the old turrets in turret rooms in the castle, and we walked in there, and it was just an instant. The energy was like so heavy in there. It was
everything, all the equipment was going
like
off,
we put our equipment down, and it was just like going crazy. So we tried to like debunk it by resetting it, placing it in different places, but it was just like walking into a massive energy field, but it felt really oppressive, quite horrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're unsure but we're in touch with another investigator who goes there quite often. So we're going to speak to them about it and see what compared, see if they've got similar things in that sort of area of the capsules.
What else did you get over that in your investigation there?
Heard a couple of sounds, like voices in the air, like groans. Quite a few in different places.
Yeah, that was in that room as well. We heard like we were like stood, and then there was like a groan of like a man in between us. That was really weird. Yeah. But
was it a prison?
Was it a prison?
A castle.
Castle.
Yeah, but was it used as a prison?
Was it used at a prison at some stage?
Didn't think so.
No, but it's on an Iron Age Hill fort as well, so the grounds are quite.
I've seen people trapped there.
Thing is, you're on an Iron Age hill, you know, could that be the reason for high EMF? Because you're picking up something within the ground
Yeah.
that's spiking it. I mean, it'd be good to go around the outside with your EMF meter, wouldn't it? And do a dry run around and see whether you pick up anything. You know, could it be a ley line? Could it be minerals in the ground that are creating a very high EMF? I don't know. You know,
could be, yeah, could be. But it's a very, very good location. We, you know, we live quite local to it as well, and we didn't know really about it until recently. So you know, we're definitely going to return there because I think there's a lot of like unanswered questions, which as normal investigators, you know, is a good thing because you like to go back and.
You notice whenever it goes for Highland Paranormal, when you leave a location after a good night, do you leave with more questions than answers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd ask you this question for you guys as well, because this is one thing that we've got a theory as well. The more you visit a location, the more trust you build up with what's there. Do you guys find that?
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we've done the ancient ram in about 12 times.
Quite a lot.
I think we got used to the spirits in there, and they got used to us in a way.
So we always get stuff happen,
But yeah, I do agree with that.
You know, our opinion is that they're sort of sussing you out as much as you're sussing them out, because they're not going to approach a negative energy entering their world, are they?
No.
You know, they're looking for good energy. And I think a lot of times you can go there the first time and you can have some activity, but like you say, the more times you go back, the more they trust you, the more they start to then interact with you. And you must get that, Cara, as a sensitive. You feel that they're more comfortable with you as you walking in. They think, oh, I know that lady.
Yeah, usually I believe that they can tell when somebody is sensitive, but I kind of like to think of it as I'm just having a conversation with a normal human. You know, I wouldn't want to open up to a complete stranger right away. You know, that trust's got to be built.
Yeah.
And I find that I get a better response if I just introduce myself and tell them my name. You know, something as simple as that makes a huge difference.
It's very basic, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Because I always feel that, you know, I always say, hi, my name's Paul. I'm not here to create a problem. I've come to talk to you. Would you talk to me? You know, and that you build up that rapport. Sometimes you don't get it, and then you walk off on your own, and suddenly you hear them. You know, you think, well, they're just waiting for the right time. And I think they look at you and watch you and do what they do. Here's a question for you. Do you think spirits can see us as we are, or are we a haze?
I think they can. And again, this comes down to rods, using rods. One of the things we've done with the rods is we've asked them to count how many of us are there and spin a rod for the number of people there. Again, it could be our subconscious, not ruling it out, but I do find it interesting that they always seem to count the right number.
Do you think that's because they see energy, count the amount of energy sources, or you actually feel that they actually see what we look like?
I think they might see what we look like, because my partner is French, and she was actually showing me a video with a French medium, and she was telling basically this experience she had in a 12th century church in a castle, in France, where she could see a monk in this room, but she said the monk could definitely see her. He was completely freaking out and basically calling her a ghost. So yeah, I think, Lynn, we've talked about this before. So are we always seeing people from the past?
Yeah.
Could we be seeing ghost hunters from the future?
Well, this is the question you asked. You go into that realm of time slips now, don't you?
Yeah.
Is it such a massive time slip that we happen as we go into a haunted location, as we think it's haunted? But is it that we're stepping into a time slip? We, do we go forward in time? Do we go back in time? And that's how, like the question, have you seen an apparition? Have you seen an apparition at all?
Yeah.
Yep.
Never when I'm filming.
No.
Yeah, that's the trouble. You never expect it, do you? It always happens when you least expect it. It's like when you get a voice response, isn't it? You think, oh well, there's not much going, and just as you say something, you think, what was that? And they always seem to talk not over you, but under you, sort of thing, So where was your first apparition you saw then, Liam?
The first one I saw was actually in my own house, where previously two mediums had separately said that basically this woman walks across the front of the living room. And I saw from the waist up a transparent image walk across the room. So yeah, that's my only one where I can say I saw some detail. I've seen, shadow figures. I've seen the shadow figure of a man walking across a room and other shadows, but that's the only time I can truly say that I've seen something with detail. I also saw through lockdown, I was doing a walk around in Inverness, was in one of the old churchyards. I just put my phone away, finished the live, and I could see something peeking around the corner of the church. Now, I'll be honest with you, the winos and that like to go around the back, so I kind of thought it's probably just one of them. But as I turned around properly to make eye contact with this grey head, it morphed into basically a shape, flew across the graveyard, but didn't reach the church on the other side. It vanished in thin air. I've never, ever been able to explain that one at all.
So it wasn't the time to run then?
Oh, never run. We don't run.
No. We like to stay our ground, don't we? That's what we're there for. Cara, what have you seen an apparition?
Yeah, I've seen a few. I've seen my cat who passed away a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
Sitting plain as day, full form, every detail about him. Could see him in the kitchen. And funnily enough, I told my husband, who's also part of Highland Paranormal, walked away and he shouted me back. My current cat was sitting facing exactly where I had seen my cat who passed away.
Oh, wow.
I have seen my granny, she passed away and she was very fond of one of our cats again, and I have seen her hand stroke him. Just her hand, and I knew it was her hand right away.
Wow.
But I think the most interesting one was a location called Leith Hall up here in Scotland. It's a National Trust location. I have a family member who did a lot of work there, and he was out there working one weekend and asked me to come along. It was just when we were sort of starting to work out that it might have been sensitive. The place was closed to the public, but a member of staff let me have a walk around, and I said, there's a wee boy in that corner. And they said, well, there's not, but that's the reports that we get of haunting here. It was a nursery and it's a small boy that they always see in that room.
Wow.
Yeah, so quite a few times I've seen them.
How about yourself, Lynn?
Yeah, I've seen my cat's tail disappearing through the conservatory door. I was shouting at another cat, and my daughter says that other cat's through there. It was not that cat. My husband's seen that cat that's passed as well. I think it's the only time he's seen one. He was in shock, and he was a 6-foot policeman, and shock. That's why I think he got started on the paranormal route. Like I said, the shadow figure that bottom of stairs, we've talked about it in one of our shows, is there's a classic shadow figure. There's no 3D. It's just like you cut out a cardboard shape and painted it dark grey that is just flat matte, and you couldn't see through it because my wall behind is pale cream. It was just that head, shoulders, and I swear we locked eyes. Can you say eyes? But we looked at each other for a few seconds, and we've discussed that. It says, did he see me as I was? He'd see me, he or her, see me as a shadow figure? Is there a time slip involved? Is it a classic spirit appearance? We didn't care. We don't know, kind of thing. There are these classifications. You get stories of people going round. I've been in America doing ghost hunts, and the staff will tell me the stories, and they do dress up sometimes. Guides dress up and do, and there was it's St. Augustine Lighthouse. I guess during the day went to the front desk, and they were asked if they enjoyed their visit. Really, and the guide that was dressed up in period costume was really good to talk to, but they didn't have any guides dressed up in period costume that day.
Oh wow!
So they're interacting as though they're in the present day. So different types. I've been poked. Then the house Louise was talking to before. I've smelt a couple of times in different locations, different smells. And that house, I done going over the history research with the owner, and we were all in the kitchen sitting. It was an active room as well, and we'd all gone out. We were doing a charity event in the house. We were going out to meet the guests, and I'd left my water in the kitchen. I'd run back, and I opened the kitchen door, and the minute I opened the kitchen door, I smelled kind of sweet cigar type tobacco. I closed it, ran and grabbed the first member of the group. I saw, come here, and smell this, as I opened the door, and we both smelt it, and it just disappeared after that. And I've smelt it with perfumes and sweet things as well. So I've heard something. Really. Not only once I've heard something, really. But when I see on programs, it's a growl. Maybe it's not a growl. It's just we aren't hearing it. It took the playback to actually figure out it was a voice saying a name, not a growl. So
also, there's that question of power of suggestion, isn't it? If someone suggests, "Oh, did you hear that knock?" Even though you don't, so other people go, "Yeah, I heard that," but they didn't. Yeah. So that power of suggestion is very much prevalent, isn't it? When you're doing a ghost hunt, that if we get activity, we don't say anything. We let the guests say it. Oh, did anybody hear that? Then that doesn't mean that you're suggesting anything to them. Because sometimes you do an event, if you suggest that, people say, "Well, they're putting it on." I didn't hear it, but if they can hear it themselves and you don't say anything, and they come up and say, "Oh, I thought I just heard a knock," then they're guaranteed to enjoy the evening. Gemma's put, "Have you ever come out of Scotland to do a ghost hunt event?"
That's one for Lynn.
I do. I can't afford to go to America every year, but kind of try to go every second year. So I have done St. Augustine Lighthouse. The old jail in St. Augustine is really worth doing. You start at midnight and you go about 3 a.m. It's really worth doing. And last year we've been meaning to go to the Keys forever. But we finally got down there this time. We went to see Robert the Doll for East Martell, where he's housed now. For me, it was quite quiet. We had other activity with a nurse there was a yellow fever outbreak, so the fort was used as a hospital. We did get some interaction with that. cat balls and rods. My hubby did rods. But I keep forgetting my husband, when we were sitting being told the story of Robert the dog before the investigation, he had his shirt tugged on the seat. There was the open backs, and he says he got his shirt tugged. And he's no one to exaggerate. He's a retired policeman. So,
wow.
But for all intents and purposes, Robert was quite quiet. We didn't get anything on the gadgets with them, but you don't command. And it's really interesting to hear the proper story of Robert, the inventive story of Robert the dog.
Yeah,
really. He is from Key West, so there is local stories that the guide tells you. So it was really interesting.
Cool, boys. So, is there anything you want to add over your weekend of in the fall? Tell us a bit about.
Well, we had various things going on. It was just a really good investigation, to be fair. Like you said, a lot of stuff happens off camera there. Like I think there was Lynn or someone was just saying, we actually had the same thing. We were recording. Yeah. I literally pressed off the voice recorder, and then we all heard a voice. Yeah. Everyone heard the voice in the room. Well, I pressed off the voice recorder, didn't I? Yeah. Second down. So annoying.
But isn't that always the way, though?
Oh, always is, yeah. It was so annoying. I literally just pressed off it as well.
But you all go quiet, didn't you? Hoping you could hear a voice.
Yeah.
You think, oh, well, okay. So you asked another question, then you hear the voice. You think, if I hadn't have asked the question, would we have heard it? Or would they have answered if I hadn't have asked the question? So it's, it's a bit like going back to basics, isn't it? Ask and wait, show the respect, and show the respect for the building and the surroundings that you're in, and the people that you're communicating with. It's all about respect, isn't it? Having the respect for it. You've always got to be respectful in any location, and even to them. Because like Gera's saying, it's like talking to another human, basically. And you wouldn't talk to another human badly. You say, how are you? How's your day? And interact and slowly build that rapport with them. So when you go back next day, say, oh, I remember them. They were really nice. We can talk to them. And you start, like you say, the more times you go back, the more activity that starts to build, because I think they trust you.
Definitely.
But any other questions for
what else happened?
What else happened?
What else did we get in?
No, we got one of the owners from the 16th century, 1678. It was a name called. It was Geef, Geef, like quite an old name.
All right.
He said he was one of the owners of the castle, which we didn't get much from it. But
how were they getting that?
How did you get that on the recorder or
through the board? Through the Ouija board, board and it come through with Geef.
Yeah, but we did hear obviously a man's voice later on in the night, so we wondered if that was possibly him.
Right.
Answering.
But he said on the board when we were asking the questions, he was quite happy we were there.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a question, isn't it, to ask Spirit, are you happy that we're here?
Yeah. That's what we do. Yeah.
It's being respectful, isn't it?
Absolutely.
If they say no, then you what do? Walk out? That's the $1 million question here. What do you? Okay, so you're not happy to hear? Oh dear, it's going to be a quiet night. Anyway, what else did you get, boys? Anything out? Much else?
We did get. There were some areas that were quite quiet, but we were. There's 8 turret rooms on the outside. So you got the castle in the middle, and there's 8 turrets on the outskirts of the building.
Yeah.
So in turret, I think it was turret 1, where the dance. So they've turned it into
it's like a weddings.
They do
venue.
Yeah,
it's quite modern. Modern
yeah.
inside, obviously because they hire it out.
So they've got a dance floor. So in one of the turret rooms, and basically we were getting a lot of like activity in there. From like we were like kind of having a bit of a laugh as well in there, like
building
just,
up the energy.
just bit of music, just
Yeah.
this theme sort of thing, as crazy as it sounds, but we're all mad.
We are. I think it all helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But so we're getting a lot of the REM pods were going off a lot, weren't they? And
music box.
Yeah, we put our box down. That was going off as well. So
nice.
It was really good.
An event. You had an eventful night.
It was very good.
Eventful, yeah.
Were you on your own? Question from Gemma: were you on your own or with another group?
It was just the four of us, So and Dan and Martin who come along as well. So but we had access to the whole castle. Yeah.
Wow.
So, it was really good.
Right. Any more questions, Angela?
One more.
One more from Graham. Have you been in contact with any famous spirits from the past? Highland Paranormal.
You potentially were, Liam. Last
year. At Pool House. That was. So last year at Pool House they had Mary Queen of Scots exhibition through the tourist season there, and that included a few artifacts that belonged to Mary. And what the staff were actually telling us was that they'd seen the whole season, that especially women, by the time they got to the end of the exhibition, they were in tears. It was emotionally affecting a lot of people. But I did a rod session in there, and I basically started asking, right, are you connected to something in this room? The rod, I think it was at the locket of hair. I can't remember what. Yeah, so the rods moved to the locket of hair. And at that point, I'm going, come on, not a chance. And then the weirdest thing happens. I says, right, so who are you? And I think I did ask, are you Mary? But the rods refused to answer, but they vibrated. It was like there was, I'm not sure I should tell you who I am. It was it felt to me,
right.
I sense kind of hesitation. And I've never had it so strong on the rods before, where you could feel, I'm sure the other guys have had this as well, you can feel the energy on the rods, and it's almost like conflict. Mm-hmm. There's an absolute conflict going on here of should I or shouldn't I say who I am. So that's for me, that's the closest I've got to a famous person.
Infinity Paranormal. I once had a conversation with Mr. Selfridge at Highland Castle that he used to rent. It's surprising, isn't it? Really, it's. I think sometimes you get stunned by the reply you get, and you think, "Was that what I just heard? Did I just?" You sort of stunned, didn't you? I don't know why we suddenly get so surprised when we get an answer. We sort of think, "Well, okay, right. What do I say now? How do I reply to that? Any more questions, Angela, or
no?
Right, we've done 1 hour 20 minutes, so only remains for me to say Highland Paranormal, Lee and Cara and Liam, thank you so much for coming on to our Monday Night Paranormal Live. Very, very interesting. Thank you for coming. We really enjoyed it. No, you're welcome. We'll be looking forward to your human pendulum results.
Yeah.
Next time you do them, I think you'll be quite surprised what'll happen. But we seem to have good results with them, so it's it's back to basics. It's a very basic thing, isn't it? Yes or no. Backwards or forwards, and that's sometimes what we find is the best way of communication is going back to the basics, what they understand. Sometimes all this technical equipment we have, they don't understand the apps shouting at them and. REM pods bleeping away and all that type. Sometimes you think, we'll go back to basics. They'll understand. Not once for yes, twice for no. Back to the basics, and we seem to get good results from that. Anyway, enough waffling. And thank you, Abnormal Paranormal, for your comments on the weekend's ghost hunt. We're glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great.
Sound like a fascinating place.
It is very good. Yeah.
So it remains for me to say thank you everyone for tuning in tonight, and a big thank you to Highland Paranormal. So from all of us on here, we'll say good night to you and stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.